Welcome to Target Market Insights, the multifamily and marketing podcast. Each week, John Kasman interviews multifamily and marketing experts to teach you how to find the best places to invest, attract investors, and grow your portfolio. You are listening to Target Market Insights with your host, John Kasman.
Welcome to Target Market Insights, the multifamily and marketing show. I'm your host, John Kasman, and I want to thank you for joining us for another great episode. Now, if you're enjoying this show, do me a favor, leave that 5-star rating and review. And if you haven't already, make sure you hit the subscribe button so you don't miss an episode. Now, today we're going to be talking to Jason Van Orden. Jason helps thought leaders to reach a larger audience with their ideas, create new income streams from their expertise, and build business models that align with their values and goals. Now, as a consultant, trainer, and strategist, he draws from more than 14 years of researching top internet influencers and experimenting with his own personal experience. Now, he's helped people launch over 60 online courses and over more than 10,000 entrepreneurs, generating 7 figures in online course sales and 8 million downloads of his podcast. Let's welcome to the show, Jason Van Orden.
Hi, John. It's good to be here.
Absolutely, Jason. So I kind of went through your bio. You've helped to teach people, and I believe you may have messed it up when I was reading it, but I believe your experience includes, creating multiple brands, launching over 60 courses, teaching more than 10,000 entrepreneurs, and having 8 million downloads of your podcast. That's a ton of experience and a lot of people you've helped. I kind of went over your bio in some detail, but why don't you fill in some of the gaps and give people more background of who you are?
Well, yeah, sure. Absolutely. So I started out as an engineer, and that lasted all of 3 years after college. And I knew I was not meant to be an employee of somebody else. And through a very circuitous path, to keep it short, I actually dabbled in real estate investing myself. But in that time, I was also studying a lot of marketing and started consulting on direct marketing because I was studying lots of, Dan Kennedy and other people like that. And through that process, I ended up with this revelation because I was buying all these courses about real estate investing. They were essentially seminars that had been recorded and then turned into a course, right? So I decided to do that myself. Where I lived, I noticed a lot of real estate investors needed help finding buyers and sellers to put their deals together. And so if they knew good direct marketing principles, I'd be able to help them. So I put together a seminar, a one-day seminar, just to give here are all the fundamentals of what you need to know to do some marketing for your real estate deals. Put 25 people in the room. And I think I charged $200, so I made $5,000 for a day of that, recorded it, and then had a course. And I was like, okay, that's it. This is what I want to do. I love teaching. I love helping people with marketing. And so then I went online to sell that package to people outside of my locality, right? And so I had this new asset. And that's when studying various direct or digital marketing things on the internet. So this would have been now about 2004. I eventually came across podcasting and then started a very successful podcast. What became a very successful podcast in 2005 called Internet Business Mastery. And that was the first podcast about internet entrepreneurship, internet marketing, and internet business. And, it was good timing. And so we grew a very large audience who started wanting to have coaching as well as other resources. So it turned into an educational company for beginning entrepreneurs on the internet. And, fast forward about a dozen years, I loved doing that business. And we helped a lot of people. Like you said, it was over 10,000 people. And now I do, a lot of the similar things, but now I really love working with people who are already established in their expertise. There's a lot of brilliant academics and coaches and consultants and teachers and, people out there with amazing ideas that want to reach more people with those ideas and would love to, get paid in ways that aren't attached to their time. And so since I have all this experience in creating business models and packaging up knowledge, like I've done for myself and helped others do, I really like helping people with their ideas reach the people they can help most and then, grow a healthy business while they're doing that as well. So in a very rapid nutshell, that's my last, 15, 16 years of experience.
Man, I love that. And I love that career trajectory, right? You start off as an engineer, realize you don't like that. You start dabbling in real estate, figuring out how to put buyers with sellers from a direct mail standpoint. And that really just takes you down this pathway of educating other people, right? So whether that is in real estate, creating the course, creating the online material, launching the podcast and doing all these other things. Now here you are helping other entrepreneurs and other skilled individuals figure out how to monetize, the skills, the gifts, the expertise that they have. I want to play back one thing real quick just to make sure it didn't go over people's head. You were talking about starting this off back in 2004, but you launched that podcast, Internet Business Mastery, in 2005. So you're like an OG pioneer of the podcasting space. What was it like, being in podcasting back in 2005 compared to now?
Yeah, it was a lot of fun because it was it was almost like people, just discovered their, I don't know. I never did ham radio, but I can imagine somebody who just discovered their uncle's ham radio and just loving I can talk to people and do this. So that was podcasting. We were figuring out how to do cool stuff with the media, and it was a lot more limited then, a lot less technology. So we were swapping ideas about, just best practices and figuring it out. And in my mind, I pretty quickly saw this is going to be significant for business and marketing in the future. So something I skipped over is that for a few years, I was also doing a lot of business podcast consulting as well, and actually wrote a book that's I think out of print now, but it's podcasting was just this groundswell, and little conferences started popping up where we get together, and bit by bit it's grown. And there's just along the timeline, there's just been these moments where all of a sudden it'll have a big kind of growth moment. So when Apple finally started their podcast directory, that was that brought it more to the mainstream. And now Spotify more recently has really gotten into the game, and so obviously it's changed a lot because now it's more mainstream. A lot more people actually know what it is, are listening. Big major brands coming into the space, right? You've got whole entire companies now dedicated to creating podcast content. So, I wasn't alive back then, but I imagine it was like cable TV, and everyone figuring out how to make money with cable TV. And as time went on, and now we've got, it's all streaming channels and things. So as with all media, it just grows with the technology. And as it becomes more mainstream, more opportunities open up for everybody.
Yeah. And I would say too, to your point, it's one of those things where people ask, hey, is it too late to get into it? I don't think it's ever too late. Obviously, if you could get in 2005, that was better than getting it in 2020. But on the same note, if you can get in 2020, it's probably better than trying to get in 2025. So if it's something that you're interested in, if you think it can help your business, or if your audience is there, by all means, try to get in, and we'll certainly link to some of the resources you have there to help people. But let's fast forward, right? You started talking about helping people with their expertise and monetizing that. And the way I think about it, it really is like this new wealth. I saw somebody post it, right? But you think about wealth and you think about your time, and that's the one thing you can't get back. There's all the money that you can make in the world, but your time is limited. So for most people, they're looking at ways to create passive income. Most of our listeners are interested in both growing their real estate portfolios, but really is to create passive income. So they have the time to do the things they really want to do and not just exchange hours for dollars. So I know you help a lot of people who have an expertise doing this, but for someone who's never really thought about monetizing their experience or monetizing their expertise, where does that conversation start with kind of transitioning that mindset to, hey, I have a skill set or a talent that I've been paid for in the past. How do I turn this into something that, can kind of create residual income where I'm no longer exchanging hours for dollars?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the whole conversation starts with getting really clear on who is your ideal audience or customer for whatever it is that you want to put together for that course. And that's why, even with the podcasting thing, there's a connection there too. Even though a lot more people make online courses today than when I first started making online courses in 2005, there's still all these little niche needs. There's 8 billion or more people in this world. And, if you get that one slice of people who want who like your perspective on a thing, that's an opportunity. And your knowledge is this asset, and it especially becomes an asset when you do, put it together into a system that can then be in a scalable way delivered to others, and you can make money back. So the conversation starts getting very clear on who the student and the customer are, and then getting very clear on what is the outcome that you are delivering to them and that they're actively looking for. Like, what are people, right now, what are they actively looking for help with? What are the unfulfilled needs that they want help achieving? What are the goals? What are the challenges they need help overcoming? So when you get an idea of like who's that ideal student or customer that you can serve and what is their ideal outcome that they're actively looking for, right there you've got a formula, add those things together, and you've got a formula to put together an online course. And then there's only two more steps after that, which are to and of course I'm glossing over a high level of a framework here, but the next is get clear, okay, what's that process of taking them from A to Z and breaking it down and organizing it? And anybody who does coaching or consulting already has some kind of process when they start working with someone. They might not have formalized it or, sat down to really organize it, but intuitively they're doing some kind of process, right? So what are those milestones? And that starts giving you a curriculum, modules, if you will, of your online course. And then, and I call that the process. And then the final piece is just to solidify what I call the experience. And this is just deciding, well, how are you going to deliver the information to the audience? There's lots of great tools to put together a digital course that's delivered automatically. Somebody signs up, they immediately get access to the course, they can go through it on their own. Or, you can have something that's a little bit more of a hybrid where maybe there is a little bit of access to you, but because a lot of it is offloaded to this digital library of information, you get paid more for your money. And the little bit of time, that they do get guidance from you is way more efficient than just purely doing one-on-one service providing and coaching or consulting, right? So those are the four things. It's the student, the outcome, the process of getting them to that outcome, and then the experience that you're going to wrap the whole thing in. And that's how you start putting together, designing a successful online course.
No, that's great information. You just talked about the way to design a successful online course. And we've seen that being able to come to fruition for many different industries, right? So I've seen online courses for pretty much anything you can think about. And I think with COVID-19 in particular, people who maybe weren't as interested or thinking about online courses are starting to dabble into it. Do you think online courses is something that, people should be thinking about no matter what their expertise is? Or is this something that, you really should be, a passionate teacher about something to jump into this space?
I mean, there is a lot of opportunity there. And I think anybody who does have an expertise could take advantage of that opportunity. Of course, there's a myriad of opportunities out there. And so I always encourage people to pick one that feels good to them right now. But the person who typically comes and ends up working with me, they know that they could be helping a lot more people, and they've hit that ceiling that's based on their time and their energy of, how many people they can reach their ideas, and they want to get them out there in a bigger way. And if that's something that resonates with people, then this is certainly a channel that can, amplify that, amplify your reach, amplify your income, amplify your impact, create new assets and income streams for your business. You mentioned with COVID out there, I think there's on both sides of the equation, both people taking courses as well as producing courses, there's more of an awareness, right? Because so much has gone online. So many people are using Zoom right now. So many people are interacting through more virtual means that, I think that's brought more awareness to interacting and consuming information in that manner. And then, of course, I think a lot of consultants and coaches and just other business, service providers, they might have been hit hard when things changed very quickly overnight. And I think those who were hit the hardest didn't have a diverse enough business model. They might have had, one source or just a handful of sources of clients or a handful of ways that they work with those clients. Unfortunately, one of my clients, everything they do is gigs where they get paid really well, but they go into companies to, do workshops. Well, the moment that everything hit, that all those gigs went away, evaporated in a matter of 2 days. All the companies are sorry, nope, nobody's traveling, nobody's coming into work anymore. We don't need you. We just can't do it right now. So thankfully, I had been working with them on some digital offerings as well. So that helps diversify their income stream. So I think that's why people have that on their minds. They're thinking, okay, well, if all my speaking gigs dried up, I still have my courses that I'm selling over here that continue to bring in income. So those are some of the considerations and thoughts to be, that people have on their mind when deciding is this the right time, or the right thing to add to my business model?
Yeah, I mean, to your point, I mean, there are a lot of people right now who can't work, or not in the way that they're used to work or the way they're comfortable putting in work. So trying to figure out how to pivot is something a lot of people are dealing with right now. Unemployment right now is at, I don't even think they can accurately track where it's at, but the
Right.
people who filed for unemployment
Yeah.
has absolutely skyrocketed, and it's imaginable that that number is going to continue to go up for the foreseeable future here. But what can people do? How can they take the skills they have and leverage and pivot? So if you're somebody who maybe you were a trainer or a marketer or whatever your background is, and you are faced with, the prospect of not being able to work and trying to figure out how do you create some income for you, what are those first steps to say, okay, how do I actually create this online course? How do I pivot? If you weren't in this space really before, you just had that W-2 job, how do you actually make that pivot?
Yeah, so let me share with you the experience of one of my clients who, when COVID hit the United States, when the coronavirus hit the United States, in a matter of 48 hours, she lost about 40% of her immediate income that was going to be coming in. So, of course, she was very nervous. And that's because she was a dance and movement teacher. She's adjunct at Princeton. So, that was income that would still be coming in. But then she had all these other like workshops. And again, it's like very much show up at a place and people come there and you're teaching them dance and movement and choreo, or she has shows that she's choreographing, and all those shows went away. So she was thinking, okay, well, what am I going to do now that this income disappeared? So she started just kind of paying attention to what people were saying on social media and in her network. And then that's the first thing that I want to point out here to start like pulling tidbits of takeaways from this case study is you really got to put your ear to the ground of who that ideal audience is that you want to serve. And there's a number of ways to do this. You can go on social media and see like, what are people asking for? What are they talking about? What are they struggling with now? You can, I highly recommend interviewing people, if there's any people in your network or who can connect people in your network, connect you with somebody who's that kind of person you think you can help with your particular skill set. Sit down and have a conversation with them and figure out what's your experience right now. What are you struggling with? And even though when coronavirus hit and a lot of things shifted in the economy, a lot of people got nervous. Everyone's needs shifted very rapidly, and that just created a new need for like ideas and leadership and inspiration. Where are we going and what are we doing? So in her case, I mean, there's actually 3 different things she ended up launching with my help, but I'll just share one of them. Her name, if anybody wants to check out her stuff, her name's Alexandra Beller, and so. One of the things that came up is that a lot of people in her industry they're called movement analysts, and there's a number of applications for this particular expertise. She started hearing some of them saying like, what, now that we're stuck at home for a while, we'd like to take this opportunity to brush up on some of the fundamentals and really kind of up our game so that when things come back, we're in a good place with our skill set. And so she saw this showing up in a Facebook group. So she started putting together a review course that she would teach through Zoom, and she just piloted something. And that's a like a second takeaway right there is to try to get something to market very, very quickly that you can just test, a prototype. That first prototype might not be the digital scalable thing that you're going for, but it's like, let's just see if people will buy something, and then I can guide them through a process and kind of refine it there and get some immediate feedback. This is how Apple launches products. The first iPhone, there was a lot of features in there that weren't in there that they wanted in there, but they still got it in the hands of their users. So then they could make the second iPhone better based on what users really wanted and needed. So she did that with these classes too. She put something up. She's like, it's going to happen on Zoom. I can have 100 people live with me on Zoom. Here's how much it's going to be if you want to jump on, and we'll go for an hour and 15 minutes and go through all these different fundamentals. So she knew who it was for, what she was going to be offering to them. She got that out in front of them, and then she just did something like quick and easy. And in fact, she didn't even have, we're sitting here recording with like mics and lights and things like that. She actually didn't have that, but it didn't stop, over 100 people from signing up. They ended up having to sell the recordings to like another 50 to 75 people because so many people were like, yes, great. This is something that we want. So she actually did that with 2 other things that, I don't have the time to go into right now, but the takeaways here are, keep your ear to the ground. What are the needs? And then come up with some kind of prototype offer. And I usually recommend people just do that through something like Zoom. I talked earlier about the process, and you break that up about how you get someone from A to Z. And let's say there's like 4 main milestones you guide people through, or kind of 4 areas of concern that are in there. You can do 4 weekly Zoom calls for an hour, and you teach people, you guide them through that. Then they get access to those recordings. Maybe you've got some worksheets or materials that you've already used with clients and stuff. Or if you're starting from scratch, you come up with some tools and you just use something simple like Google Docs. That's all I do when I pilot a course at first is I'll have this Google Doc and I share it with them. I'm like, here, fill this kind of thing out to get everything done for this module. And then we'll go to the next module. So we're talking with Zoom, Google Docs, and that's it. You can get a pilot to the marketplace. And I've sold pilot courses like that, quick and dirty for as much as $3,000 because people wanted the value, the information that they were going to be getting. And they weren't as concerned with, is it a nice polished course yet at that point. So that's, kind of a quick example and overview then of how you can start diving in and finding something and maybe get something to market quickly. And that way you get to make money first and then kind of, create the thing and let it roll out over the next coming weeks. But you've already, before you'd spent all this time and energy and resources, whether or not people are going to pay for it. And if you got people to pay for it, great. You move forward and you do the pilot. If not, you pivot, you go back to the marketplace, you see if there's something else you can try instead. So that's kind of a process people are going to be thinking about in their minds if they want to dive in and pivot and create a new income stream, especially even in uncertain times right now.
No, great advice right there. So basically, if you're someone who is in a situation trying to figure out how do you get some revenue going, one of the things you can do is, listen to your social media, listen to your network, listen to kind of those folks who are in your circle or your audience, figure out what they need, what's missing, where's the opportunity, and then move quickly. I mean, by the time this comes out, COVID-19 will have, been running its course for a while, but, to go out, move fairly quickly, solve the problems that people are facing and do it with the pilot. Don't necessarily worry about getting it all clean and polished and making it all pretty, but try to go out there, use Zoom, use some of the resources and the technology that's available and try to answer questions and get in front of people as quickly as you can. So if you can do that, that's a great way to build your audience, continue to get value, and then also you can test and see if people are willing to pay for this content. And if they're not willing to pay for it, it probably doesn't make sense to continue to invest a lot more into it. But if you are getting some traction, people are looking to pay for it, then you can obviously go in, clean it up, polish it, make it better, and go from there. Really great tips there. Jason, you also talked about, helping people who are already established. So let's talk about, the coaches, the mentors, the people who already have a program going. They already have some clients, already have, a process going. What are some ways that you work with them to help them get clarity and grow their business right now?
Yeah, so somebody in that position is actually even in a better place to do what we've been talking about here, because they already know who they serve really well, who their audience is, and they already, probably have some kind of experience in the messaging that gets their attention and brings them in. And probably a couple different things might be happening. If they're starting to max out on their ability to help clients, then they have these other leads that are just kind of like stacking up, and they're not selling anything to them because they've used up their inventory of their time and energy. So one of the first things we do is we go to their email list and look at, okay, well, there are people on here that are following you because they like your stuff, or people who are following them on LinkedIn or something like that. So let's figure out something we can sell to them so that those who maybe aren't ready to pay those premium prices to work with you, they have an opportunity to buy something. And then later they might upgrade to like the bigger packages, or maybe that's all they ever buy from you, but at least you've got this other income stream and other leads, another way for leads that are coming in to buy from you. So, there's a lot of money sitting in a database of contacts or in an email list, even of 1,000 people, or a few hundred people. So, it's about going, instead of like listening on, you can still listen on social media and things like that to get ideas, but it's like go right to your list or your database or your contacts of people that you've already attracted because of your expertise as a consultant or coach or a mentor, and check in with them and find that thing that you can, again, just pilot a course on. So, usually we run a survey and we'll get some initial data, and then we try to contact a handful of people who took that survey and talk to them one-on-one to get some deeper information and data. And then we sit down and we just look at, okay, what's the through line? What are people asking for most here? And then, often it's either, if they already have, like as a consultant, let's say they take somebody from A to Z, right? the digital course often ends up either being some kind of overview of that process, or maybe just the beginning piece of that process, because then it sets people up and they're all ready to move up to the consulting. Or it might be something that even happens before what they normally do. And so that prepares people to be a good client to work with them. So there's a lot of ways that something can snap into your business model at that point. And that's one thing you want to keep in mind as well. But somebody who's in that position already, like they already have their process and know who their audience. So it's just a matter of like now massaging it and packaging it up in a new way. And again, it should start as a pilot and then can move to something more formal after that.
No, great tips there. I mean, to really think about how do you create a product for folks who maybe, and to your point, I mean, if you have a high cost consulting program, to create a product that maybe is a little bit lower ticketed, where you can get more people into it and see if you either set them up for the consulting program, or maybe that's all they buy from you, but you're serving them, right? And you have to figure out, what do people look for? What do they need? And how do you answer that and give them the value they're looking for? With a lot of the content, one of the things that I know a lot of people face as far as challenges is, how much should I give away? At what point do I get to, or let me say this differently. What content should be charged and what content should be free? Because there's some stuff where, we always talk about that lead generation magnet, right? That lead magnet, you want to make sure it's something of value where someone wants to sign up and join your email list. But what's too much? At what point are you giving away everything for free and there's not really as much value that you can give in something that was gated content or, paid content at that point?
Yeah. So there are a few different types of content when it comes, this is how I organize it, when it comes to sales and marketing, and then also what goes into courses for paid stuff. The first type of content is content that gets attention. And this is where you have to really hit those top of mind pains in order to, attract the right people. And here's where people make a mistake often here is, their messaging up front will be talking about their solution rather than talking about the person's pain. And the person might not have even made the connection between their pain and the solution that you are offering. And so that kind of content clearly needs to be given away for free. Content that gets their attention and educates them and brings them up to awareness of your solution. This is what we call the customer awareness spectrum, where, somebody starts out with like, I've got this problem and it's causing this pain in my life or my business or whatever. And they're out there looking for what is the right solution for them. So, that's where your content needs to meet them where they're already at and start walking them up. Yeah, let me empathize with the pain, show you I understand it. Let me help you better understand the problem that's causing that pain. And now let me present this solution that I offer and talk to you about why I am the best person to offer that solution. Now, at some point, hopefully that sets them up to where like, great, this sounds, I trust you as a person. You've earned my trust. I trust your solution is the right one for me. And I think I need to do this now as opposed to later. So let's go ahead and do this. So this kind of gets, I think, more to your question of like, well, what goes then into the stuff that's paid there? Well, the truth of the matter is sometimes I'll pull little bits and pieces of the paid stuff out to give people a taste of what that's like once they go in there. And usually it's stuff I'm pulling out of the beginning of the course, because obviously as you go through the course, stuff builds on itself. But, sometimes there's an assessment or something that I'll pull out of that course. And by people taking that assessment, they're getting more clarity. And it's kind of like putting them in a place, teeing them up, if you will, to go like, well, wow, now that I understand my situation better, I think I should proceed with the rest of this process here. And at the same time, like if you were to go listen to my current podcast right now, which is called Impact, each episode has a framework in it that you can download and go through. And some of those frameworks, marketing frameworks and frameworks about designing courses, are pulled right out of my course materials. And I'm giving some of that stuff away for free. Now, why do people still pay? Well, they still want, look, like, you can go learn a lot of stuff on YouTube, but at the end of the day, you still sometimes can be overwhelmed by how much information there is, or what order to put things in, or how things build on themselves, or right. So even if I give pieces of this information that's really solid and sometimes paid stuff that normally people would get out of a course, still in the end, they're going to look, I need some further guidance. I want to know like how this all goes in order, and they're still going to sign up for the thing. So I'm actually, I would say, pretty generous with what I give away for free. And granted, there might be a framework that I give away on my podcast, but when you come and take the course, you're getting a whole module with more nuances to that information and more ideas about how to apply it, for instance. So, there's always more depth and breadth that comes into a course. So I'd say don't be afraid to give some of your best stuff away.
Those great tips there. So don't hold on to it. Give your best stuff away, but just also make sure that you can give more context to that information, help build on it and grow from there. Lots of good information there. Are you ready for a bullseye round?
Let's do it. Yeah.
Give me a failure or an apparent failure that set you up for later success.
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, we've talked about piloting courses, and I've definitely released courses at times. In fact, there was one course I released and only one person bought it, and that was my dad. And so, I cut bait with that one, but that was, again, just information. It was a feedback loop. So that set me, that gave us information to go with the next course and just, hit something else or, try something a little bit better or do the messaging, differently like that. So, I look at everything in business and strategy as a series of hypotheses and experiments. And so if you kind of look at things as just like, hey, what's the best experiment I can try now? And I'll take whatever information that gives me and then fold that into the next step. Then, that can be used in just about anything. But, so there's one example is the time I launched a course that totally flopped and nobody bought but my dad. But then shortly after that, I had one of the most successful launches that I've had in that business too. And I think it's just because, I was taking information from the marketplace.
Give me a book you've recommended or gifted the most in the last year.
Well, that would probably be one that I recommend and give to my clients a lot, which is strengths-based leadership. I'm looking at it on my shelf right here. There's also StrengthsFinder 2.0. So StrengthsFinder 2.0, you take an assessment, they tell you which of these 30 strengths, which of the 5 are your top. And it's really, really good information. But then there's this other one called strengths-based leadership that I like. That's particularly for leaders. And since I work with a lot of people who are wanting to be thought leaders, it shows them how they best show up and influence people and help people in a leadership type position. So there's a lot of assessments out there and many of them aren't all that great, but this one is done with a lot of research by the Gallup organization. So I highly recommend it.
Give me a digital or mobile resource you recommend for your business.
Yeah, there's so many of them, but I'll go ahead and say probably one of the ones that I'm in the most is Asana. ASANA. That's a to-do project management. It's how I work with the people on my team that work with me. And, it's not just about productivity. It's about getting everything out of my head. And when I've learned to not try to hold things in my head, it frees up a lot of energy. So energy is important and time is important, as we've established already. So that's why I think that one popped to my mind.
Give me a daily habit that helps you stay focused on your goals.
Yeah. So I think one of the best things is just getting enough sleep. Now, at the same time as I say that, I don't want people to think like, oh yeah, he's one of these, because like when the Miracle Morning came out and stuff, which is great, but it doesn't work for everybody. So I also don't want to sound like I go to bed at 10 every night and get up at 6 every morning, because I have a lot of improvement to do here, but I do focus a lot on having 8 hours of sleep, because otherwise it's just too easy for brain fog, anxiety, and things like that to take root. And that kind of attaches to another habit, which is not working on weekends and just really giving my brain and my body that chance to let those things go and recuperate. So those habits are pretty key for me.
What's one thing you know now that you wish you knew when you were starting out?
Yeah, I think something that I wish I can go back and tell my, so I mentioned how, I did a little bit in real estate investing. And I remember when I first quit my engineering job, which was pretty cold turkey. I still hadn't replaced my income or anything, but I was just done. And unfortunately, I spent the first 3 months making just silly stuff, making business cards and coming up with the logo and even spending money on these things. And it was I just needed to get out there and get a deal. Right. And so if I go back to my former investor or entrepreneurial self, it'd be just get something to market and sell it. Don't futz around with that. That's just my insecurity playing out in, these seemingly productive things, outward things, when really I just need to go and prove that I can, make a transaction happen. So that's the advice I'd give myself.
What are you curious about right now?
Oh, this is a great question. I follow my curiosity a lot. I find my curiosity is a key component of my intuition in business. Well, I'm certainly curious about where the world is going next. So that's one that I'm curious about. But let's see, something more concrete than that. So much of my time is taken up by helping my daughter homeschool now that she's home doing school, that my curiosity hasn't been followed as much lately. But I'd say I'm curious about good communication and relationship dynamics. I mean, on and off, that's human behavior and things like that is always a very key thing for me. So, right now, I think with a lot that's going on in the world and just how our relationships are maybe being tested in new ways, if we're all like in quarantine together, whatever, that's something I'm curious about is how that's affecting people and how we can better interrelate in such a time.
Jason, what's the best place to grab a bite in your hometown?
Well, yeah, see, I live here in New York City, and so there is obviously like
no good restaurants in New York City, so
no lack of choices. Obviously, many of them are delivery only right now. I recently, I'm really, really into Mediterranean food. It's a big go-to for me, and I was just recently introduced to my new favorite. I think, this is, I guess, a variation on Mediterranean. I think it's actually Afghani food, which isn't technically Mediterranean, but it's Khyber Pass, which is down in East Village, I think. East Village, Khyber Pass. So
Khyber Pass.
Yep. Yummy food. I love their chicken, what do you call those, skewers? And yeah, it's good food, spices and everything. It's good.
All right. Well, we don't know when we'll get back to New York, but when we are, we'll make sure that's on the list as well. Jason, lots of great information today. I really appreciate you kind of walking us through that journey, right? For a lot of people, maybe creating an online course wasn't something you were thinking about 3 months ago. But today, maybe it's a way to help either supplement your income or create a brand new business and create a new income stream completely. So if you are interested in that, you gave a lot of great tips to help people figure out what do they have from an expertise standpoint? How do they create a course or a platform online that allows them to monetize that intelligence? And then also how to pivot their business if they were doing something right now where they can't get in front of people, ways to pivot that and to make it grow. Jason, for listeners who want to get in touch with you, learn more about your services, what's the best way to reach out?
Yeah, so I'd encourage you to check out two things. First, you can go to jasonvanorden.com, my website, and click on the podcast thing. And clearly, if you listen to this, you probably like podcasts. So I have my own podcast called Impact, which is all about growing a thought leadership-based business and brand. And then the other thing you can check out is if you go to jasonvanorden.com/pivot, I actually have a 1-hour free training that goes more into that case study of that client who teaches movement, and we go more into the details of the 5 different steps that she took. And I'm providing that for free right now because I know a lot of people are looking for further guidance on that. And we went into a lot of good stuff here, but we can only get so much into a podcast interview. So that's jasonvanorden.com/pivot if they'd like to get more information about that case study.
Jason, thank you again for coming on the show today. Take care and have a great one. Okay.
My pleasure, Tom. Thank you.